After I graduated from my bachelor's program in biology, it became clear I was never going to become a doctor. This caused my South Asian parents significant distress. For the next 2 years, every couple of weeks, my dad would shove newspaper ads under my bedroom door. And they had the following: do your medical degree in the Caribbean. Do your medical degree in Russia. When he gave up on that, the ad started to be, do your MBA online today, and so on. None of these ads interested me. Then one day, he put the following under my door: run for interim Toronto City Councillor. No experience necessary, 1-year term. And finally, this was one of the ads that I definitely wanted to do. And I got really excited. I already had a lot of student and not-for-profit leadership experience, and I felt that this was somewhere where I could really make a difference. And so I tried out for this position. It required making several different speeches to the City Council chambers. And guess what? I came in third out of 36 candidates. I even got a call from then Mayor David Miller. And he encouraged me to run for office in the future. So I did, 3 more times. But what I slowly discovered was that there wasn't that many women running or even winning elections. Since the COVID pandemic, women politicians have finally become more visible. We've already heard of Jacinda Ardern, Chrystia Freeland, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and now Kamala Harris. However, in the last 30 years, women elected to parliaments around the world has only increased by 11%, for a global average of 24%. At this rate, it will take 100 years for us to achieve equal representation. What about Canada? Well, Canada ranks 50th globally when it comes to the percentage of women in parliament. And of the 50 largest cities that we have, only 4 of them have women mayors. Some of the countries on this list might surprise you in terms of representation. For example, Rwanda. After the 1995 genocide and civil war in Rwanda, women really had to step up to leadership. Now, they make 65% of that parliament. And the things that the women have done there is incredible. They've helped increase maternal health, they've helped boost women out of poverty, and they've ensured that both boys and girls achieve education at the same rates. In Cuba, women now represent 70% of all professional occupations. And more than 80% of women continue to post-secondary education. While these numbers seem really impressive, there are still gaps even in these countries. Women rarely appear in the upper ranks of office or in the highest positions, such as heads of departments or cabinet ministers. So why do we need more women to run for office? Well, simply put, if there aren't enough of us, our decisions, the realities, the needs and concerns that we have as women will not be taken into consideration when policies are made. And guess what? According to the United Nations, in order for legislatures to produce such policies, we need 30% of women to be elected. And we're almost there. Women are on the verge of making that happen. Women's increased political participation as elected officials leads to better social, economic, and political outcomes for everyone. Let me tell you about some of the amazing things that women politicians have done right here in Canada. In 1921, Agnes MacPhail became the first woman elected MP federally. And right away, she got to fighting for equal pay legislation. Provincially, Pauline Marois of the Parti Québécois championed $7 a day daycare, allowing women to pursue their own dreams, livelihoods, and careers. And at the local level, municipally, there are so many things that are practical things that women can do. My city councillor, Kristen Wong-Tam of Toronto, recently led the initiative to ensure that homeless shelters included free feminine hygiene products for homeless women and girls. In 2005, United Nations also released a report that stated that countries with more women legislators are less likely to go to war, less likely to relapse into conflict, and are critical to the peace and conflict resolution process. A dramatic example of this is from 2019, when a single active shooter massacred 50 Muslim mosque-goers in Christchurch, New Zealand. But within just 72 hours, Jacinda Ardern's government swiftly called to action, and they banned all countrywide assault rifles and high-capacity magazines. Despite all of these incredible things that women have done, why is there still such a low number of women in office? Well, in 2019, a recent Canadian federal study cited that there was numerous barriers to women running for office. I'll talk about just a few of them here. First of all, women face gender stereotypes and discrimination. When I ran for my first nomination meeting in 2007, I lost to the other candidate by many votes. Then I ran for my second nomination meeting. I lost to the other candidate by one single vote. Sometimes seeking an internal party nomination can be even a bigger battle than running in a general election. Finally, it took my third attempt to secure a riding. However, when I came home that night, the first thing my mom said was, "Great, who's gonna marry you now?" And while my mom feels regretful about what she said that night, it's true. Women who run for office are perceived to be dominating, threatening, and aggressive. Money, too, is a huge factor. When I ran in my first campaign, I managed to raise just a little over $5,000. I got most of that through family and friends. And this allowed me to have a really cool mobile office, one where I could store my literature, my signs, and other things, i.e., it was the trunk of my parents' car. Most women experience difficulty in raising funds for their campaigns. To put this into perspective, it takes around $90,000 to run a winning election campaign in Canada. And women lack those traditional networks that help funnel money and donations into their campaigns. In 2010, Rob Ford's mayoral campaign spent a record $1.7 million. As you can imagine, this is definitely a challenge. Another deterrent is harassment. According to Amnesty International, women typically receive 3 times the online harassment than men face. This includes extreme threats such as sexual violence, violence against their families, and even death threats. The more women achieve in their professional and public lives, the more backlash they receive as well. When I ran federally, I can attest to this. There wasn't a single day where I did not experience some kind of overt sexual harassment. And I felt like there was very little I could do, because when you run for office as a woman, people expect you to be polite, friendly, and agreeable. And the other thing is, women also are very harshly judged by their appearance, their manner of speaking, and their personal lives. Do you all remember the incredible attention Hillary Clinton's pantsuits received when she ran for president in 2016? This is just a simple Google search. Women of color, like myself, sometimes we aren't even considered candidate material. I was 30 when I ran federally in 2008. When I canvassed, I wore suits I could barely afford, and I'd go door knocking. If I ever took a white male volunteer with me, the resident of the household would continuously talk to the volunteer. And eventually they'd look down at the flyer I handed them, see my face and say, "So you're the candidate." And I would be, "Yeah, that's me. Another challenge that women face is the confidence gap. They say women tend to undersell their talents while men tend to oversell. What do a reality TV star, a drama teacher, and a label printmaker have in common? Well, one is the President of the United States, the other is the Canadian Prime Minister, and the last is the Premier of Ontario. I often hear that people aren't political. People say, "I'm not interested in politics." And I feel like that's because our politics might be a little bit intimidating when you think of big picture issues like the environment or the economy. However, how many of you here care about whether or not your seniors or your children have access to the care they need? Whether or not an ambulance makes it on time in the case of an emergency? Whether or not there's enough sidewalks and crosswalks in your neighborhood to keep things safe? If you answered yes to any of these things, you have what it takes to make it in politics. Because it's this compassion, not your status, that make for a good politician. I've told you a little bit about some of the hurdles I experienced when running for office, but I'll tell you, the positive outweighs the negative substantially. It was a life-changing experience. I got to meet thousands of people in such a short period of time, from all walks of life. I learned very quickly about the real impact that policy makes on the lives of people. And I learned how limitless you can be when you're picking up so many skills on the fly. When young girls and boys visited my campaign office and asked me to help them in their homework assignments or interview me, it's a feeling that you'll never forget. And I learned that firsthand, the difference that you are making when you see those kids. We need more women to let future generations of women know that they too can lead, because representation matters. Seeing yourself represented helps boost your self-esteem and confidence. We need all sorts of women to run, women with different abilities, women of color, women from across socioeconomic backgrounds, women of all ages, trans women, all women. So how can you make this happen? What can you do? First of all, inspire and nominate an incredible woman you know. 2, support women with your time, skills, and money. Volunteer on their campaigns and donate. 3, connect women to opportunity. Introduce them to change makers and power brokers. 4, vote for the women you believe in. And bonus point, run for office yourself. As a woman campaign trainer once said to me in a workshop, you may not think that you're smart enough, that you don't know all the details, the history, the stats. Maybe you think you don't look the part, or you think you're just not ready. But guess what? That never stopped a man. Thank you.